Welcome to the Mission Ready Podcast, where we focus on building high-performing teams. This is episode 001. I am your host, William Branham, retired Navy SEAL, sniper instructor, speaker, business coach and consultant, author, and I got some other stuff that I've done I can't even think about right now. I am joined by my co-host, Brenda Neckvatal. Brenda, tell me about yourself.
Oh, hello.
About yourself. I don't know. I don't need to know any more about you. I already know you.
You know me.
Everyone else about you.
But that's okay. That's all right. How are you, first off?
I'm doing awesome. I'm on the road. I'm in California right now, about to go do some very physical, high demand work, building men into better men.
I love it. So yes, I am your co-host. I am on the opposite side of the states right now. I'm in the Virginia Beach area. I am a human resource professional, a tenured human resource professional. I'm team and group dynamic specialist. I'm a crisis management specialist. I deal very, very well when things hit the fan, which, as we all know in business, can do.
What sort of things are you talking about? Thing. You said thing. I say I have different language than you.
Things when the stuff.
When the poop emoji hits the fan.
There you go. That's right. And I'm a best-selling author. So
hey, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here with you. I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, we've known each other for quite a while now.
Yeah, we have. I think we met at a funeral, as a matter of fact.
You think correctly. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. There's nothing like meeting somebody who's turned into one of your all-time best friends at a funeral on your birthday, and somebody you don't know sitting there watching you blubber and cry like the whole time.
That was quite an impressive turnout for that funeral. He was a pretty amazing man. So and it was interesting. I was actually supposed to go to another buddy's funeral that same weekend or that same week, but because it happened during COVID, his funeral got pushed to the right. I don't even like a year and a half or something. But Dave's funeral went, because of the location and the community and the tragedy of it. Happened. And then I know I went from there to do the swim across the Hudson River. Yeah. But so just for everyone else listening, so Brenda and I met. We had a mutual friend, Jason Redman, who was also a SEAL. I served with Jason at SEAL Team 10 for several years, and I met Brenda and we kind of hit it off. And she was like, hey, what do you think about being an accountability buddy? I'm like, sure. I don't even know what that is, because I was still trying to figure out what the hell I was doing after I retired from the military. Still trying to figure out my way and what I needed to do. And so we would do weekly calls, and we found out we have a lot in common, and we hold one another accountable, which is what you do as an accountability partner. And then we went and spoke at an event together, and the focus was all about leadership. I have a presentation that I give that I call it, 5 SEAL secrets, 5 secrets to help you think like a Navy SEAL. But the venue, talked about leadership, and I was like, well, let me redo this whole 5 SEAL secret thing and talk about leadership. So I presented something that had to do with leadership through the lens of a gunfight. Brenda presented her presentation about conflict management and things like that, and I took notes, and she was like, hey, what do you think about us writing a book about the things that we spoke about? I was like, that sounds awesome. You've already written a whole bunch of books. You're a best-selling author. I've just written a bunch of magazine articles and an ebook and some other things. So I'm pretty stoked to come together, write this book that we're getting ready to launch, and share those leadership secrets with you and the world.
What was really awesome about when we spoke together, so we were down in Tampa, we got asked to actually share the stage together because of the alignment of how we thought as far as the subject matter and the theme of the whole thing. And what had happened is that we came together and really started outlining for everybody that was there how to actually build a high-performing team. And we've never really let that conversation go. Some of the things the projects that we get individually put in or pulled into, we find ourselves always coming back to high-performing teams. And that's really how it went. But it's more than that, because then we realized that we ourselves, we're a high-performing team. Even though we're a team of two, we're a high-performing team. And we have a lot of common values that we share. And I think the first one, I think is one of them is the most important. There's actually two in the parallel, and I don't think that we can put one above the other. And that's why I really like to look at them as equal measure, but it's honor and integrity. We're very, very upfront with each other. We don't have an issue holding ourselves accountable before somebody else has to hold us accountable, and I think that is a measure of honor. Will's pulled into all sorts of different directions. I've got, the stuff that I'm getting pulled into, and if we can't make a call, or if all of a sudden we're talking and our brains go to the right or the left or something like that, which happens frequently when we're working.
Is your focus all the time.
We don't get upset about it, and it's just like we recognize each other for our strengths. We recognize each other for our weaknesses, and we help each other figure out how to get through the opportunities. And let me tell you something, the two of us, we've been through some pretty heavy stuff together. And as friends, we're very, very supportive of one another. As people that work together, we're very supportive of one another. And so we consistently honor each other. We honor the space that we need to in order to get off what's on our minds. We've never had a fight. I mean, we've known each other 4 years now, and we've never,
4 years now.
Yeah, we've never gotten into an argument. We've never had a disagreement. We attack the same goal from two different angles, but we've never done anything to like offset each other, which is pretty great.
There have been some hard truths that we have spoken to each other.
Yeah, and we do it lovingly. I mean, it's not like, bitchy and hard ass, but we're both very direct with one another, and it's awesome. I love that part. That's
friendship right there. That's like, if your friend isn't telling you that you need to pull your head out of your butt, then they're not a friend.
Yeah, they were never on your side to begin with.
Right.
I completely agree. Some other kind of common values that we share: commitments to communication. We are gritty. We get through what we have to get through, and it's hard as hell. And I wish we could kind of share some of the stuff that we are currently going through or have been through, but you know what? Life happens. Life is hard. We've got grit. We're very tenacious.
Let me just talk about grit real quick. I have, people, see my background and they're like, oh, you have all these talents. You're really good at all these things. And I'm not good at any of them. I grew up with a mediocre mindset. I grew up poor as dirt, free lunches all through, 1st through 12th grade. I didn't fit in, and everything that I have, I had a speech impediment with a Southern accent growing up, joining the Navy. I didn't know that I had ADHD until much later on in life. I just thought I was a slow learner or couldn't figure things out or couldn't focus or whatever. And, took some neuropsych evals after I found out that I had, some pretty significant TBI from one, getting shot, not in combat. People
don't know that about you.
What's that?
I don't know that you got shot before you were even in the military.
How is that even possible? We'll share that story later. It was a hunt.
That's another day.
I was 15. So anyway, when I was in combat in a gunfight, I was never super concerned about getting shot because I've already been shot. Yeah. The guys about me, and I'm like, bro, you could be screwed right now because what are the odds of me getting shot twice in one life? So I wasn't too worried about that. I did get concerned at times when things were blowing up around us because I hadn't been blown up yet. So that was a concern. But on the grit side, for sure, nothing comes easy for me. And people think that it does. It absolutely does not. I've always felt that I've had to put in more work than everyone else. And so as long as I maintain that attitude of I have to work harder than everyone else, I will never become complacent. And I'll tell you that when I have become complacent and thought things were good enough is when I've had massive failure. So I just have to maintain this idea or this mindset of just, I have to be gritty and have to work harder than everyone else. And I think if everyone achieved that mindset or embraced that mindset, then there's nothing that can stop you.
Yeah. And it's interesting is I come from the opposite polar of that, the opposite polar of that. So I too obviously have a learning disability. I'm dyslexic, so I say things funny and weird and backwards. I make up my own words, but my background is I came from a well-to-do home. My dad was a hospital administrator for 23 years. It wasn't a thing that we didn't want. And so when I left home and everything I have, I've earned myself. And that was, I kind of get teased sometimes in life about being like, a trust fund baby or something like that. And I tell them to go blow it. But right, but it's just a tease, I mean, nobody knows the path that you take. Nobody knows the path that you're on unless you're walking, consistently like we have now for the last several years. And, my challenges are not so much different than Will's, from the fact that he came from nothing. I put myself in a position where I had to earn everything that I have, so grit is really your tenacity. It's really all about, are you willing to do what's required in order to get yourself to the next level, no matter how hard it is. And, it's a mindset, and it's an attitude too. It's not anything that's forceful. And I think that's what some people get confused, is that grit means that, you have to be that guy in the gym that's putting everybody down in order to motivate them to pick up that extra 5 pounds, or to do that one last rep, right? Or finish strong. That's not what grit is. Grit is just your unwillingness to quit, and really looking at what you're up against with determination, whether you actually believe you can do it or not. And I think
Angela Duckworth wrote a book on grit. She's a ton of research on it, and one of the things that she found is, let's just say inner city kids that are, some are smart and some are not, and what she's found is, like, you're not a product of your environment. You're a product of your grit. There are kids that were very, very smart, and they didn't have to work that hard to achieve what they needed to achieve. And they actually didn't go as far in life as the kids that were not as smart, but they had tremendous grit and they were just willing to put in the work. Those kids went 2, 3, 4 times further than the kids that didn't have the grit. They just had, high IQ or whatever. So grit, again, I'm going to come back and say that I think grit is one of the most important aspects of being a high performer.
Yep, I agree. And we have some others too. We have, we're curious people. Like, we have no problem slowing our boat down if we look at it as an opportunity. And especially now that, we're going in the direction that we're going and working really more together as partners, we're okay slowing things down and saying, okay, let's take a look at this. It's not so much analyzing it, but, we're curious. If we do this, what's the possibility of something else happening? We're very compassionate with each other, and we do well, collaborating. I mean, we know each other's families for the most part. Their families know that we're friends, and, Will's, I'll say it, Will's actually he's my family of choice, along with his, wife and kids. They're my family of choice. I would bend over backwards to do anything to help them out.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem. Anytime. But if I do bend over backwards, you have to help me stand back up again. It's just
of course.
So that leads us to, really getting down and understanding. It's like, if you're going to work in a team environment, either as a partnership or a triad, or, a small cohort of some kind, you have to step back and figure out about the things that you appreciate about one another. And we have a lot of things that we appreciate about each other. And that's the reason why we were able to come up with these common values so easily.
Yeah, I think, and I think we just covered a whole list of them right there. In that short 2-minute intro that we did, that was about
15-minute 2-minute intro.
But I mean, one of the biggest things that I appreciate about you is you're always there. You're always like, hey, what's going on? Hey, how you doing? Hey, what's going on? Hey, let's talk. Hey, let's do something. Like, you are tenacious. And I'm running around with, like a chicken with my head cut off all the time. And you're like, hey, and you give me the grace to go and run around and, like, I will get back to you when I have a minute to breathe. Yeah. And you're like, okay, no big deal. Just keep, we're going to talk. Okay. I know we are. I will get back to you. I promise.
One of the things that I really appreciate about you too, is that like, I've had a hell of a year, and
more than 1 year.
Yeah, it has been. But you listen, and you actually listen without judging me. Sometimes you think the things I do are kind of wacky and you tease me about it, and that's fine. But you never judge me poorly for anything, even when I've made a mistake, or I may have made a call that you wouldn't necessarily have made. And you'll tell me that it's like, well, I wouldn't necessarily make that call. And I'm very receptive to that. Sometimes I'm stubborn and I'll still do it anyway. But there are people like when folks judge each other when they're having conversations, there are times where you can actually like even see it in their face, and you can't even see it in your face. When Will listens to you, it looks exactly like that right there. He's really just present, and there is no judgment. And that's one of the things that, between grace and no judgment, I think are two of the things that, we really appreciate about each other.
And I was about to go down a rabbit hole of some stuff that I've recently been kind of diving into, but I will not go down that rabbit hole yet. We'll save that for another episode. I don't want to overwhelm people in this.
Well, I'll tell you something else too that I really appreciate you, and you're gonna laugh when I tell you this, but I know sometimes I can be a little naive, and I say that naivete is that you've been in a career to where you assess the poorest form of a human being's nature, the bad nature of people that come out quick. I mean, that's what historically you've been up against, the enemy, right? You have to assess that quickly. You don't have a long runway for something like that. And so, when we've done some work together, actually we did one session, we were group leaders, and there was a gentleman specifically I was trying to get to a point, and I could literally feel it. Like Will is he had shut down, he'd stopped, because he was trying to get this guy to have the same point too. And I'm trying a couple of different techniques that I know coming around. And even though Will got to that place a little bit further, I wanted to take it down to see if I could get this guy to latch on. The cool part is that he does kind of tease me a little bit about it, but he doesn't rip on me. Like, what were you thinking? It's like the guy wasn't going to do anything. Why are you wasting your time? And he's just like, yeah, he said, I saw exactly what you were doing. I didn't think he was going to get there. And ultimately the guy didn't get there. He's still living in his little world, which is fine.
Right. And that just happens. But it's, you assess the threat, you assess, do a quick risk assessment or whatever. Is it worth the squeeze? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Yeah. Sometimes it's not. Some people are just not open. They're not receptive. They're closed down, and that's okay. Maybe they'll be ready later.
Yep. Absolutely.
And we're all like that. We all go through that process. And I know where I am today, if you would have tried to shove some of the stuff that I'm doing or thinking or diving into 6 months ago down my throat, I would have been walls up, rejecting you, saying you're an idiot. Don't put that in my face. So we have to be ready for whatever the thing is that we're being presented.
Yeah. And I think the last thing too is that we trust each other a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't even have to say, hey, I need you to keep this on the down low or anything. It's whatever we talk about. It doesn't travel.
I still maintain a top secret clearance, and yeah, I got a lot of stuff in here that I don't know about. I forget everything.
I was gonna say half of it he doesn't remember.
I forgot. I had no idea what you said.
I know, I was gonna say, but half of it he forgets.
TBI is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It's like a Navy SEAL form of man ears. Huh? Wait, what? It usually comes out of his mouth. Wait, what? Once I hear wait, what? I'm like, all right, well, he's totally forgotten about it. It's all good. All right. So today, though, we are talking about, so aside from getting to know us, this is us. What you see is pretty much what you get. But so this podcast is about being mission ready and in the face of how do you build high performing teams. And there's a lot that goes into this. And we have got a lot of topics ready to talk about, but we at least wanted to kind of help you guys understand what we believe the traits of a high performing team are.
Yeah. So I'll kick off, kind of with my definition. And what I believe a high performing team is a group of individuals that come together as a team who collaborate effectively to achieve shared goals and objectives. And some of the key aspects or characteristics of a high performing team there are clear goals. There's strong and effective leadership, clear communication. There's trust in the organization. Trust is something that is critical for every team. It doesn't matter if it's a team of 2 or a team of 2,000. Trust is critical. Collaboration, accountability, and continuous improvement. If you're not always trying to get better, then what are you doing together? And it doesn't matter if it's, again, a group of 2. It could be a relationship. It could be a business. It could be whatever it is. If you're not all in the same sheet of music, you don't all have clear goals, you don't have a strong leader, and I believe everyone on the team should be ready to lead at a moment's notice. You don't have clear communications, you don't have trust, collaboration, accountability, all that stuff, then you're not going to be a high performing team. You're just going to be a group of individuals trying to get a paycheck.
Yeah. And you've been in SEAL teams, you retired at 26 years, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And of the 26 years, how many years were you a team guy?
23 of my 26 years.
23. So that meant the first 3 years that you were just in the
first year I was, going to boot camp and going to schools and stuff. And then I spent 2 years on a ship in Yokosuka, Japan, doing, regular Navy sailor work, which really is a lot of, there's like maintenance on stuff. I learned a little bit about leadership, and I have always kind of, not wanted to be in a leadership position because there's too much responsibility there. And it wasn't, but I kept being thrust into leadership positions, always being uncomfortable. And I think that's where I always have thrived, is when I was uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Never have I thrived when I was comfortable, because that's when I became complacent. And anytime I was uncomfortable, I couldn't be complacent. I had to, that just goes back to grit. I just had to go and figure it out. And when I did, I became a better person, a better leader, a better, team builder, and better high performer.
So how old were you when you went into Buds?
Count
your toes.
21, 22, I think. I think I was 22.
So is it fair to say that was like your first exposure into really a high performing team, period?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably more so.
I was in the Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout. I considered, the guys around me to be high performers. I always think everyone else is a better performer than me. Yeah. So I like to surround myself with people who are better than me, so that I can raise myself to their level. And then when I surpass their level, I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah. So yeah.
Like, how did I do that? I'm not sure what happened.
But it's, we know that the SEAL teams are an elite high performing team. Sure. Absolutely.
And not one, and there are levels. It's like jujitsu. If anyone here is listening to has ever done jujitsu, like a jujitsu black belt, I am not one. There are levels to that game.
Yeah.
Same in the SEAL teams.
Yep.
Like there are levels to being higher performers in the SEAL teams. There are guys who are, I would say this thing about performance in SEAL training, and I would say you have two choices in Buds. You can either quit or you can keep going. That's option 1. And option 2 is you can either choose to be mediocre or you can choose to be awesome. And I learned, and we'll cover some lessons later about that, about my experience during Hell Week and the boat crew that I saw performing at a high level, that I made sure that I got in when I had the opportunity, because I just want to be surrounded by high performers who are going to raise me to their level, or I have to fight to get to their level, and I become a better high performer. And so I chose to not be mediocre and sort of ho-hum through Hell Week. I chose to be awesome and surround myself and work harder and win every race during Hell Week.
Yeah. the reason I was asking is because my exposure to an elite high performing team for the very first time of actually serving on one didn't happen until I was 30, believe it or not. So I've got a very long retail career with, in the beginning was elements of HR stuff rolled into it. And it wasn't until I entered my 30s that I knew it's like, okay, I really want to do this, right? And so, I started off working. My very first job ever was working with my family's business, which is actually literally 10 minutes away from where you live in the islands. And that's kind of odd too, is like when we met each other, I blasted this poor man with questions because I'm like, I know who this, like, you and I know this person, you and I probably know this person. And he's like, who the hell is this? And like, it's like, I know you live in Hawaii, where? And he told me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, but where? And he's like, over here. And I said, yeah, but where? And he's like, what? And I said, my house is literally like 3 minutes away from you, like where my family was. And it was just hilarious. But I say that because, I started with my family business over in Hawaii. I did it when I was 13, I was for like 3 weeks, and then really understood what it was like to work in a team environment for the very first time, because I didn't have that in school. And then I progressed on. My first probably more well-coordinated team was when I opened up the Warner Brothers Studio store in downtown Waikiki, right on no, what was it? Royal Hawaiian and the main drag down in Hawaii. Doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you've ever been there. So
I live there and I couldn't tell you the street name.
It's no problem. So and then it just kind of goes on. I'm very fortunate to have now worked for 6 Fortune 500 companies. And it wasn't until I got into my second Fortune 500 company with CarMax, and I worked for CarMax for 8 years, that I was really shown the difference between management and leadership, because I never had like really good mentors that taught me how to become a effective leader. I could go into a broken store as a manager. I could clean it up. I could get our numbers up very, very quickly. I could, make improvements to what's going on in the staff. I'm a fixer, which is part of the reason why I became such a good crisis manager, is because I've been through, a lot of heavy stuff before I even got into it as an HR person. And it wasn't until I got into CarMax where my favorite all-time mentor and boss very quickly chipped away at my edges. And I was very edgy. I was very judgmental. I was extremely critical of most people that came across my way. And now it's just the opposite. You see very little of that and way more compassion, but I have no problems putting my foot on the ground when it comes to actually leading. So what I saw along the way, and then when I progressed to the corporate office at CarMax, where I was part of a team that was winning, national awards, top training, ATSD, kind of training awards. It was pretty fantastic. Gallup's best places to work. And we were actually part of the team that made a lot of that happen. And so what I saw when I think of a high performing team, I see a group of individuals who are highly skilled. They come from different places, but we're all motivated to work together to hit that common goal. And what I have found similar to Will is that the strength of a team is often tied to the strength of a leader, because you can't have a high performing team unless you have a leader that knows how to manage a group of people like that. You can have a lot of talent in one room. You can have a tremendous amount of skill, but if you don't know how to bring all of that together into a better oiled position, you're going to struggle. We have cultures across the country, right? We've got cultures, we have subcultures. You can be an American, and yet your culture in the East Coast is going to be very different than your culture in the West Coast. It's going to be very different than your culture in the South. It sure is going to be very different than your culture being on an island stuck in the middle of the Pacific, sipping pina coladas with Will and beer, right?
I don't drink pina coladas. I don't like coconut.
Well, in Hawaii, if you're 30 minutes late, you're on time. I mean, that's just how it works, right? And but that's very different. And then you have somebody like me who comes from the East Coast or from Pennsylvania. It's just like you are there on time. So, these alignments get out of whack. And what happens is that if you don't, so you have your prime culture, And then you have your subcultures of your country. So you have the macro, and then you've got, you know, varying degrees of going inward, and the micro. But if in your own team, if you don't define the culture, I promise you somebody's going to, and it's likely going to be the one person that you don't want to define your culture, right? That's going to be the terrorist in your group. That's going to be that narcissist, and it's going to be that most difficult employee that you have to tangle with. And so that's why when I first got exposed to a high-performing team, it was a breath of fresh air, because I seem to naturally resonate with wanting to be on a high-performing team. I've always, you know, wanted to be the best version at work of everything that I could possibly be. I was overcoming dyslexia. Didn't even know I had it until I was 32, right? I mean, it was just like I was knocking out challenges and obstacles and things, and I was so gracious. I was so appreciative of it that I was not willing to let people down. And there's a lot of that element that happens in a high-performing team. And we'll talk about group dynamics and all that stuff as we kind of continue in through here. But, you know, again, Will and I are coming looking at the same focal point, two different lenses, two different pathways of experience, both coming together with very similar ideas about it. And if you don't have, in that kind of work environment, if you don't have somebody who knows how to make that work and make that be extremely effective, which is why you're here listening to this, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, you said something in there that I talk to leaders about all the time is culture. And I say, just like you said, if you as a leader are not driving the culture of your organization, then someone else is probably driving that culture, and it's probably not what you want it to be.
Yeah.
So, the culture can be pretty much anything you want it to be. I tell leaders to figure out what your core values are, or whatever you want to call it. And it should be 3 to 5 things that are non-negotiables in your organization. Like this is the foundation of the organization, and it should be something that you repeat every single day over and over. They're non-negotiables, and that drives the culture of the organization.
Yeah.
Most companies, most organizations don't have that core value. They have like a mission statement or something, and it's just very wordy and no one even reads it. No one has any idea. But if you have 3 to 5 things that you just repeat over and over and over, this is our core values, this is how we achieve success, this is our non-negotiables, these are firing offenses, then when you create that culture, you have a much stronger organization.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned, and I really appreciate, and I use this today. So anybody that I coach and counsel, like I say exactly the same thing that I learned back in the turn of the millennium. And that was, my old boss. There are people that, we all have ideas, and we all have like, hey, we know we can make this better, right? So they come up to the boss and they say, hey, if we do this, this, and this, it'll make things better. Usually somebody's giving an idea of how it's going to make something better for them, like how they can do their job better. And they come from a place to where they want to do better for the company. So if they want to do better for themselves, they can do better for the company, which eventually will do better for everybody else, right? That's kind of, look, a lot of people are good people out there, and that's usually where they come from. So anytime somebody would come up to Tom and say, hey, we're really interested in, we want to do this, I would hear him do exactly the same thing all over again. And I loved this. And I mimicked it. I still think like this today. And he asked one very simple question. If we do this, is this going to help us sell more cars? And usually anybody who gave him an idea for the very first time would stop for a second and like, and they'd sit and they think about it and they're like, no. And he goes, then it's not worth pursuing. And that was one of our core values in our store. It turned out it was also one of our core values in a way of carrying a decision point through the rest of the company. So anytime any type of decision that was made, the big question always came up. If we do this, if we bring this vendor in, if we switch over to this kind of paint, if we do this process, if we actually reduce our rates, if we bring our prices up, if we do this, is it going to help us sell more cars? And that was always the question. And if we could not answer yes, it was never worth pursuing, and we always dumped it. Always dumped it.
Yeah,
Brilliant and simple all at the same time.
That's the mission. Your core values go to the mission of your organization. So yeah.
Yeah. So, that's a really great example. So when people hear, we've said it a couple of times, we haven't gotten into it because I'm sure we will. How do you build your core values? And that is a perfect example of using core values in really, like, how do you carry something forward? If you marry into a partnership with another company, is it going to help you? You have to know your number one business objective, period. And if you don't know that, and if you don't educate and teach to it, and you don't align values that support that, you're going to be fledging all the time. Doesn't mean you can't make money. You can make money, but you're going to be in an environment that's just going to be like, oh God, is this exhausting? If you're going to get tired for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Ones. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mic drop.
I think that is our intro.
There's that. I know we're gonna go down a rat. We're just gonna like whoa, get into it. Oh my gosh. All right. So we've got some exciting stuff coming up. We hinted around it, so now we're gonna get into it. We have a book that we're writing together, and I am super excited about it. It is called Mission Ready: Building High-Performing Teams from the Battlefield to the Boardroom. And we're super excited. Our target date for that is sometime in the beginning of May. And of course, when you write a book, things don't always go as planned, but that's okay. We've been working on this for a little while and pretty excited. We're coming about it from both angles. You want to talk about the angle that you're coming back, and then I'll talk about mine?
Yeah, so I come from the angle of leading teams in a gunfight. And so, and I'm sure people are like, well, I'm never going to be in a gunfight. I'm never going to lead a team. Yeah, exactly. But the purpose of what I'm saying are the concepts that we use to lead in a gunfight apply to every organization on the planet, from your marriage to your Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
The principles apply to everything. I think there's only one company that I know that is uber successful that, when I talk about, core values or whatever, has more than 3 to 5. And that's like the world's largest hedge fund. But the guy who ran that and created that is an anomaly. So, and he has like 125, and everyone that works there has to learn them. But so I'm approaching leadership and building high performing teams from the lens of teaching new leaders how to lead in a gunfight. And I use my time in the SEAL teams to train leaders. Like, a gunfight is the most high stress environment that you can go into. I spoke at an event a few weeks ago, and the leadership talked about life or death leadership. And really, like, they weren't really life or death leaderships. They were a bunch of security guards. But in the SEAL teams, it's life or death leadership. If you don't lead properly in any of these scenarios, it is everything we do is life or death. Whether you're rappelling out of a helicopter, or you're in a gunfight, or you're diving, in some enemy harbor somewhere in the world, it's all life or death leadership. And so the principles that apply to what we do in the SEAL teams apply to every organization. And so that's the approach that I'm coming. My portion of the book is being written, and then Brenda, your portion is?
Mine's more on the group dynamics and the people dynamics that happen. What happens when you have a narcissist on your team? Like, let's talk about your hiring. What exactly does it mean to hire, and why you would want to hire a specific way? Also really kind of talking about the group dynamics and why groups work and why they fail. Also what happens when people implement change, because these are the hard puzzle pieces, and these are the things that people will trudge through. But I have found over time it works is that the leaders that really embrace understanding, it's kind of like when you have an engine, right? Engine in a vehicle. And if you understand how an engine works, you understand how it actually can fit the needs of your organization, right? How it can actually get you further down the road rather than only making short stops at a sign, right? If you get how an engine also works with other pieces of the vehicle or the trailer or whatever, right? I'm the person that likes to understand how things work first, because if you understand how things work, then you understand how things apply. And we're adults. We have to have it has to be relevant for us to really want to embrace it. And so we're talking about the hard things, not the things that you would hear from, an HR person that just wants to take a phrase out of a can. I'm talking about pure, candid, here's the reason why these things work, here's the reason why they don't, and how you can take what does work and actually put it into your organization, and how to carve out what is massively failing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I think the two very different dynamics come together to I think you'll get a lot of lessons and a lot of value out of this read. So and again, in this podcast, we're going to talk about a lot of the things that we talk about in the book, and some case studies that we have in real world, dealing with clients, dealing with organizations, leaderships, things like that. And I hope you guys enjoy listening to what we have to say.
Yeah, that'd be great. So how do you know when all this is happening? How do you know when the next podcast is going to drop? You guys can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You can follow Will at William Branham, or you can hashtag it.
It's actually William.R.Branham. I don't, like, someone else has William Branham. I don't know how.
That's a good point. Well, you can find you easy just by hashtagging 5 Seal Secrets. And then my last name is next to damn near impossible to even pronounce. So when you see it first, so it's Brenda Neckvatal, but you can easily find me on hashtag Dear Brenda. And we actually have something for you if you're here for a reason, and we want to, our purpose is to help you guys out as the best we can. And we want to actually give you a customized tool that you can use. It's, I think you'll like it. It'll give you an opportunity to kind of assess where you're sitting presently in a high-performing team. And anybody can actually take this. It is a free assessment, and you can get a customized report. So you're not just going to get some here's a tool if you give us your name and address and all that other stuff. We're actually giving you something that you can take and run with now. And you can find that over on our website at www.missionreadyleadership.com. You complete the assessment. It's going to give you that customized report. And then you can start doing today to work and build your high-performing team. Start where you are and move forward.
I'm going to make fun of you a little bit, only because someone made fun of me once upon a time, probably a couple years on a podcast. It was not you.
Okay,
but they said, you don't have to say www. That's what old people do. Old people say.
I am older than you.
I'm not calling you old, but some people might think that you're old because you said www.
Dude, we're Gen Xers. We're freaking old. Just the way it is.
I don't know what that means.
Just turned 50, which, by the way, speaking of teasing you, I don't know if you know, so Will had his 50th birthday. He was working on the project with Background.William, and I don't even know if you know, I mean, it was hilarious. They showed up with a birthday cake and torturing other. I have no, do you even know that I was the one that actually called Joan and set all that up?
No, had no idea.
That was me.
No, I had no idea. Well, I got 3 different birthday cakes. I got one the day before my birthday, and that was one of the other instructors and his girlfriend set that up, and then that turned into a whole
whole thing. But yeah, no, that was me.
it was for sure through a different dynamic in that already awkward dynamic that we have with the Modern Day Night Project. But yeah,
well, it was your 50th birthday. You needed something memorable. You're welcome.
And yes, thank you. And then I had more than one I had a guy's wife that was going through the project, and she actually reached out to Bedros via Instagram Messenger, and she's like, what kind of cake do you like? I'm like, I like pumpkin cheesecake or whatever. And so anyway, it was
hilarious.
It was entertaining for sure.
And on that note, we're excited to see you guys.
That is all I have. You guys stay awesome.
Yep. Keep it real.
Stay mission ready. Talk soon.